Let us just begin. We shall not waste any time. Very good afternoon to everybody. Sawadee Krap to all the participants from Thailand and anywhere else in Southeast Asia. I'm very pleased to be hosting this webinar for you. I'm an acquisitions editor from Cambridge University Press based in Singapore. So as I mentioned, today's webinar will be talking about publishing a research article in a journal. Yep. All right, let's move on. Okay, so today's topics, basically, as you can see on the screen, we will talk about history and a little bit about the press itself. And then I'll straight away move into journal selection, how to write up the manuscript to meet the requirements of journals, and also how we're going to prepare for the submission. And the next section will be on peer review, which is quite an important section because that will determine whether your article will be published or not. And then the following topic will be on open access. So this is quite a recent development. So I guess most of you might be familiar with certain parts of this topic itself. So I'll try to clarify a bit more. And finally, we'll talk about the transformative agreement. Thereafter, there will be the Q&A. So just a very quick housekeeping. As far as possible, try not to turn on the microphones. And as I mentioned, there'll be a Q&A towards the end. You can put in your questions in the chat box of the Q&A. I will try to answer them. And we will be recording the webinar, and the slides will also be shared with you, okay, after the session, maybe in a few days' time. So don't have to worry about that. And at the end of the webinar, I also appreciate if every one of you can also complete a very short online feedback survey form, okay, so that we can improve on our webinars in future. Okay, now let's start. Introducing Cambridge University Press. I think most of you will have heard of Cambridge University Press, of course, the University of Cambridge. Actually, the press itself is sort of a department of the University of Cambridge, but we are more or less self-governed in that sense. Yeah, so we are a part, but we also manage our own business and our operations by ourselves. So we are actually the oldest academic publisher. Okay, we were founded in 1534, quite a long time ago. So as you can see, there's a long history behind the press. Since August 2021, we have become part of the Cambridge University Press and Assessment group itself. So within that group itself, there are a lot of other business groups, such as the English language learning and teaching, UK international schools education. Then we have a smaller team such as education reform and exams and qualifications too. Okay. So these are all now part of the big business group called the Cambridge University Press and Assessment. So CUP, we are also a business group. So even though we are a pretty old university press, I think Oxford is slightly younger than us, but we are making major investments in digital publishing, open research, higher education, to ensure that we remain relevant to our customers, our so-called researchers and students. And we are also a global publisher. So that means we are looking to publish the best research, the best scholarship, wherever it comes from, any parts of the world. Yeah. So what does the press publish in? Okay, so basically we do three main areas: academic research, academic learning, and of course retail. So within research, we are publishing peer-reviewed journals. We do books and reference books. Of course, Elements, which is a new product that we have launched about 3 to 4 years ago. And also for academic learning, we have textbooks, courseware. So that is for online learning, and also CAO, which is meant for professionals, continuing and professional learning education, and also guidebooks for professionals in certain subjects. And lastly, of course, retail. We do operate a bookshop in the Cambridge city itself, And we also sell Bibles, which is a pretty small part of business, but also very important. And if you look at the academic publishing landscape and how the press stands, you will realize that actually there are a lot of journals that are actively publishing every year. Okay, more than 25,000. Yeah, and it's increasing every year. Okay, that leads to the number of articles that are being published each year. 2 million articles. Can you imagine that? That will take a long time if you have to go through every single one of them. For the books itself, just 200,000 every year, new books, okay, new books. So not as much as a journal article, but still rather substantial in a sense. In terms of market value, of course, the science, technology, medical sciences are all makes a huge chunk of the market. Okay, together they make up around 25 to 26 billion US dollars globally. And within social sciences and humanities, is only about 4.5 billion. So if you look at the market, then of course there are also a lot of market players. Okay, so within the publishing, we have large science commercial publishers. We have university presses like Cambridge and Oxford and some of the American university presses. And we also do have some regional and national or rather specialist publishers where they only specialize in a few subject areas. So regardless of whether you're commercial or university press, not for profit, all of us are affected by a lot of changes, okay, in the market. So there are some evolutions and of course there are some disruptions. Technology is of course the biggest disruptor. A lot of new journals and current journals are all shifting to incorporate the early research. Okay, and sometimes they are also born digital. That means they only exist online. Okay, they don't have print at all. And some of them are OA only. OA here means open access only. Okay, so they only publish open access. Sometimes they may require the authors to pay a charge or a fee. Sometimes they do not. Okay. And definitely, of course, artificial intelligence, machine learning, and recently, of course, ChatGPT is also the biggest topic to so-called disrupt the publishing side of the business. The other so-called movement that has sort of disrupted more of the journals publishing side is open access, okay, because of mandates from the funders, okay, UKRIF, Plan S, okay, requiring the authors whose research projects are funded by them to publish in only open access journals. Okay, so that resulted in a lot of changes over the past few years. Okay, so that means some of the journals will be being converted from a subscription-based model to a fully open access, open access model. And we are also looking to incorporate or rather sign more transformative agreements with libraries, okay, libraries, so that scholars, researchers can still continue to access the journal and also publish in the journal easily. And lastly, of course, is preprints. So basically, it's just a sharing of early research on preprint servers. So this is more on the sciences, yeah. And of course, there are also some other things coming up over the years, like impact and metrics. And I'm quite sure you all know the Web of Science impact factor. How it's still being used by the university administration to so-called grade your research results, okay, output. Also we have Scopus, Google, all kinds of metrics. And definitely there's still a lot of free content out there, okay, so-called free in the sense that they are illegal, okay, so they are illegally made available for everybody to use, where due to copyright issues, they should not be. And lastly, of course, the pandemic is sort of pushed forward the digitization of all the scholarship, and actually it also accelerated the speed of the publication, okay, especially the medical, biological, pharmaceutical sciences. That being said, what is your challenge as an author, researcher? You have to make your research stand out, and before you can do that, you must know, okay, how to negotiate all the different walls and maze of publishing in a journal, especially if you are fairly new to this. So the first section I'm going to talk about is journal selection, okay, and of course manuscript writing and preparation, okay. So selecting a journal, okay, is important, okay. Why? Okay, if you do not select the right journal, it's quite likely that you would be rejected immediately. And that might mean you might waste a fair bit of your time and resources in preparing for the submission. Okay. So firstly, look at the editorial board's page, or rather look at what the editorial board is looking for. Okay, the journal's editorial board. Okay, go to their homepage and have a look. Read the aims and scopes. Just compare their aims and scope with your journal article. Is it within the scope? For example, certain journals, they are quite broad-based, so they are happy to accept interdisciplinary or multidisciplinary journal articles. Okay, some other journals, they do not accept that. So you need to know, okay, whether that journal will accept the kind of research that you have undertaken, okay, or even the methodology that you've used, whether they are happy to, even include it for peer review. Then after that, you can of course read up some of the recent published articles of the journal. Try to find out if they relate to what you have wrote on your research itself. Is it relatable? Is there some common ground in terms of the theory or the kind of approach that you have used? And look at the key topics they have covered in maybe some of the special issues, or even some of the recently published journal issues. Okay, look at the style of coverage. Okay, do you think your paper is at the same level as them? Yeah. And last, look at the general hierarchy of the journals in your field. How significant are your findings to the understanding of your discipline? Okay, so there is always a level of significance in terms of the findings or the research output or conclusion of your paper. Certain papers have conducted a more of a localized kind of research, and that might not be so, I would not say acceptable, but more of not so of interest to a major journal, a very reputable and top tier ranking journal, whereas they are always looking for very significant findings that can change the or rather impact on the research in literature itself. So if you think your research maybe is done on maybe a small group of participants, you might want to just not aim too high first, okay, especially if it's the first time you're publishing a journal article. Just go for the mid-tier journals first, okay, those who are more regional in nature, okay, so that you stand a better chance of being accepted for peer review. Because if you just submit to the top 10 journals when you're fairly new, of course they will know that you're new, so they might have some doubts, especially the editor-in-chief or those top tier journals. So still you need to be careful, or rather be more conservative in choosing the right journal. Then of course you have to ask yourself, what are you looking for? Do you need to publish open access? Or is it all right if you can still publish in something that is not yet open access? And then what about the journal's policies? Okay, some journals are now fully go open access. That means if your library has not signed a transformative agreement with that journal's publisher, that means you need to have the funding to pay for the APC, which is the article processing charge. Okay, so you need to take that into account too. Okay, and of course sometimes you may not need to pay if if you come from a low and middle income country. Okay, so they may be able to waive it fully or maybe half of it. And lastly, you need to know sometimes some journals will also charge additional fees. Okay, so you have to go to the homepage and find out. Maybe in the submission guidelines, they will always state what are the fees that need to be paid. Okay, when do they need to be paid? So the best chance is if your library has signed a transformative agreement with a publisher, then perhaps it might be easier for you to choose one of the journals that publisher publishes, so that you will improve your chances of getting it accepted for review and getting it published. So that's the part about selecting journals. Okay, so it's a bit short, but because it can vary a lot between subjects and disciplines, so I will not go too deep. Now we'll just move on to writing a manuscript. So they are just very short guidelines. So we call it the ABC of effective writing. A here stands for accuracy. Okay, Remember, you should only submit the article, okay, when it is fully completed. Okay, don't submit the article and then you realize, oh no, I missed out some sections. Okay, I have not checked through some certain sections, and then you have to go back to the editor-in-chief and say, oh, I'm sorry, I have to withdraw it, withdraw my submission, and of course I need to work on it. Okay, so that would not give a good impression. Okay, or if you can't, you don't find out in time, and the editor-in-chief have a look at the full manuscript, and then they, of course, they will definitely have to reject it because certain sections are missing. So if it's missing, they cannot move on to the next stage at all. As far as possible, try to obey the rules. Okay, there are always rules in each journal's submission guidelines. Okay, if, for example, the peer review process is single blind or double blind, they may ask you to not provide your name, or it's okay to provide your name. Okay, so these are the things you need to be aware of. Next, of course, check your references. As far as possible, make sure all the references that you have cited in the paper is all listed. Okay, and then ensure the data is correct. Okay, you can get somebody to help you to go through the data in your tables or calculations again, just to make sure they are all correct. It's not so good if the peer reviewer spots it there are any errors, okay, in your data, especially if you are doing statistical analysis. Of course, the language is so important. Okay, focus on the correct use of grammar and spelling. If you are not confident of your English language, then you can always consider getting a language editing service. Okay, there are a lot of such service providers around to help you with the language itself. Then we move on to B. Okay, B is for brevity. Okay, brevity means you'll be concise and get to the point. Okay, journal article writing, academic writing is very different from other types of writing because you're not writing a movie or a story, novel, fiction, non-fiction. Okay, they are all different formats. For academic journal writing is very simple in the sense that it's mostly factual. Okay, and sometimes you need to give your interpretation, your analysis. But as far as possible, because it's not something people read for fun or to enjoy it, so you try to reduce the so-called pain of these readers or reviewers by being as concise as possible. Okay, try not to be too long-winded. Okay, just be short. Okay, keep the sentences short. Okay, for sure, it doesn't mean your manuscript long. It means it's a good manuscript. Okay, that's not really the case. It's more about the arguments you put forth and how you support them. So there is one tip here is in terms of the paragraph structure. Okay, first sentence you can state the first point, the main point at least in that paragraph. Then the rest of the sentences you can just try to support the argument itself or the main point. Okay, so that would at least help readers to distinguish. Okay, so every paragraph will have one point, and then they can actually understand it easier. Okay, if you have one paragraph for many points, then they don't know where to start and when it ends. Okay, when the argument ends. So this is one tip you can adopt when you're writing. Just keep in mind simple writing. Okay, easier to communicate to readers. Okay, the simpler it is, that means that more readers can understand it. Okay, more readers can understand it, then the higher the likelihood of them citing. Okay, if they feel that it's something that they can use in their own research paper. And lastly, word limit. Okay, all the research papers, all the journal articles, they have a word limit. Okay, this will be stated in the submission guidelines. Okay, follow this religiously. Okay, please do that. Try not to exceed it. Otherwise, you will face problems later on. Okay. Now, number 3 is C. Okay, clarity. So basically, you want to provide a very clear message in your research paper. So in order to do that, you have to organize it very well. Okay, definitely you want to state the contribution right at the start. Okay, don't leave it towards the end. In an English journal journal publishing, that is the style. Okay, we will always state the contribution at the start. Okay, we do not leave it to the end. That's not how it works. And then if you need to learn how to structure the manuscript, as in the headings, the subheadings, how things are to be done, you can look at the journal style guide. Typically, this the style guide, rather the submission guide, they will let you know, okay, how to so-called style and format the different parts of the paper itself. And definitely, if yours is more of a scientific paper, they have a very fixed format and structure you have to follow. Okay, at the same time, you will just look at the submission guidelines, and if that's not good enough, not detailed enough, I would suggest you, if you have access to the previously published articles of the journals, you can go there and download and have a look and try to make sure that yours matches what was originally published in the journal. So over here, I have a paper from JFM. JFM is a Journal of Fluid Mechanics that is still being published by Cambridge. So I just wanted to show you. Okay, so these are the different parts of the paper. So this is the final version, okay, the typeset version, but more or less you can understand, okay, how it works. So basically, you have the journal masthead. There's an article title. They show the authors and affiliations. Okay, there's also the dates. Okay, these dates. And before the start of the article, there will be an extract, keywords, and then at the start, at least for this journal, they will say, okay, let's provide an introduction, okay? And the next one will be the methodology, okay? As you can see, the figures, they all have captions, okay? So this is something you need to be aware of. Don't provide a figure without caption, okay? Because eventually they will still ask you to provide the caption. If you have a quick question, you have to number it. And the next one will be results. And finally, conclusions. Okay. Certain journals will require you to provide a funding statement, okay, and a conflict of interest statement, okay, to make sure there's no conflict of interest when you did this research. ORCID, okay, ORCID. Most journals will now request that you provide your own ORCID to ensure that your identity is not confused. Okay, it's not confused with other authors with similar surnames or full names. Okay, and lastly, if there's a need, they can provide an appendix or supplementary resources. Okay, and definitely there's references. So now we will talk about how to prepare the manuscript. Basically, you have to think a bit harder about the title itself. It has to be meaningful. It has to be helpful, okay, for the readers. So we would suggest or recommend that you provide a short descriptive title. Okay. Typically, if they are short, most of the time people will read it, because if it's too long, people might just be a bit put off and they will just skip to the next one. Try to keep it between or less than 16 words. Okay, that will make it more manageable for all. But you shouldn't make it too short too. Okay? If it's too short, then it doesn't give readers the context of what is the research all about, especially if they do not want to go deep into the paper itself and read the abstract or the full text to find out. As far as possible, do not include abbreviations that you create for your paper in the title, okay, unless that title has already been well used by other researchers. Okay, so in that case, that's still fine. So in certain research disciplines, it's actually quite all right, okay, to use abbreviations. Okay, for example, the medical or biological sciences, okay, pharmaceutical sciences, because they need to use that. It's more efficient for them. Okay, but if you're not in those fields, then you might be more. You have to be more careful about the use of abbreviations to avoid confusion. Of course, next you need to provide an abstract. Okay, preparing the abstract, you must make sure that it's clear, informative. Okay, so you should just include all the summaries of all the various sections, such as the introduction, methodology, results, and conclusion. And of course, the abstract would also have a word limit, so be aware of that. The next will be the keywords. Okay, keywords are important because it will help your article to be fully discoverable online. Okay, so when people do online searching of the databases, if their search terms matches yours, then that will be good, because it means that you might show up on the first page of the results. Okay, that means you get a advantage over the others. Okay, who did not use the correct keywords. Okay, so with better keywords or more relevant keywords, the higher the likelihood of the right readers finding your research paper and probably also citing them. So how to come up with the keywords? So you can of course think about what the ideal reader are searching for, or sometimes the journals may just provide you a list for you to choose. Okay, so it all depends on the journal. Then for the figures, tables, supplementary materials, also you need to prepare them. Okay, make sure the captions are provided. Okay, you need to clear the permissions. Okay, that means you need to seek permission if the figures are actually reproduced from other publications. Okay, so you got to get permission first. Number the tables, of course, sequentially. Okay, table 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Include if you have pure technical materials, just include them in the supplementary materials if they are not so relevant, okay, to the journal paper itself, okay, so that you don't disrupt the narrative flow. Okay, so that's it for this. Lastly is the cover letter. Okay, cover letter is something that is a must in the past when journals were still printing. But nowadays, with everything going online and being digitized, it might be the case you don't really need to prepare a formal cover letter, but rather you just need to write it in an email or provide it in the submission platform. Okay, just provide a short introduction, something which I have laid out here, the structure itself. So basically, at the start of the cover letter, you just need to tell the editor-in-chief the name of a manuscript. Okay, describe what type of manuscript is it. Is it a research article? Is it a review article? A case report or rapid research or things like that. Let them know the rationale for your research. Okay, why did you do the research and what is the major findings and conclusions for the research? And after that, tell them why the manuscript is a good fit for the journal. They are always looking for articles that can fit a journal's aims and scope. So that's the reason we must explain why. So you do that by addressing, the aims and scope, and of course, link it up to the other articles that are already published in the journal. Okay, so you say, oh, I've cited this and this because based on their research, I noticed that there is certain parts that they have not touched on, which my paper touches on. So that it will add on to the literature and boost the so-called reputation of the journal in that sense, lah. And to close off the letter or the email, you can of course indicate that the manuscript is original. Okay, it might be strange, but actually there are people who submit the manuscript to many publishers or journals at the same time. Okay, so you must let the journal editor-in-chief know that it is original in the sense that it has never been published before. And it's also not under consideration. That means it's not already been submitted to another journal. Okay, so in the world of journal publishing, it's a big no-no. It's unethical to submit the paper, your paper, to more than one journal at any one time. Okay, so you should make sure that only when you receive a rejection from a journal, then you resubmit it to another journal. Okay, do not try to outwit the journals by submitting to 2 or 3 journals at the same time, thinking that, oh, maybe I can save some time, okay, by submitting to 3 at the same time. Okay, if anyone accepts, then good lah. But what have you ever thought about what happens if the 3 editor-in-chiefs know each other well? And if they communicate, hey, I've recently received this article from this author, and then they realize, oh, you have submitted to all 3 of them. Or it could also be the case that 2 of them decides to accept your paper for peer review, and both journals approach the same reviewer, okay, to read the paper. And then of course the reviewers will have to inform, okay, the 2 journals that, okay, this is a double submission, so probably we should reject it because it's unethical. It uses up the resources of the journal, and also taxes the reviewers' time, okay, resources too. So probably you may be barred or not allowed to submit a new article from both journals, maybe for a year or two. Okay, so this is something quite serious. So do take that into account. Now we move on to peer review. Okay, the big question of peer review. Okay, why do we need to do peer review? Okay, why do journals have peer review? There are of course many reasons, but the main reason is to allow your peers, okay, the peers or the experts in your own field to evaluate your research. Okay, as much as possible, they have to be independent. Okay, uh, but sometimes this may not be entirely true, but that is not for us to judge here. Okay, so this is something outside of the scope of this webinar. But rather, the peer review is just to help ensure that your article is sound, accurate. Okay, you get some constructive feedback. Okay, to improve it, and it will alert you to any errors if they do find any. It's also a form of discussion, ongoing discussion about the paper's topic. And certain journals, they require additional review before the peer review just to ensure that the articles are suitable for the journal. Okay. All right, so now we will talk about the models of peer review. Okay, so in the past, there was only one or two, but now there's a lot of different models. Okay, the most common ones are single blind and double blind. Single blind is the instance where only the reviewer knows your identity. Okay, you will not know the reviewer's identity. For double blind, it means that both the reviewer and author doesn't know each other's identity. The third model, which is not so common yet, is open peer review. It means both parties, authors and the reviewers, know each other's identities. All right. Recently, there's also another new model that's been tested. It's called post-publication peer review. Basically, what happens is the journal article is first that's reviewed by the editor-in-chief, who will then make an initial decision to go ahead. Okay, this is within the scope. Okay, it's just within the scope only, and it's something they are interested in publishing. So what happens is the paper will then be published online, and the editor-in-chief will invite 2 or even 3 reviewers. That means their identities will be known to actually review the paper. Okay, so they will publish the comments online. Okay, and then the author will need to respond to those comments. Okay, so this may go on for 1, 2, or 3 rounds before the editor-in-chief decides, all right, I think it is fine to stop the discussion anymore at this time, and the improvement is more or less all right. The journal is considered finalized. Okay, so that's the final version of the journal article. So if you look at the review stages, there are actually just basically 2 review stages, just desk review and the external peer review. So desk review is conducted internally by the editor-in-chief and sometimes with the editorial board members too. Okay, the editor-in-chief will of course assess, okay, is it within scope? Is the English good enough, okay, for people to understand? Okay, if it's okay, it's not too bad, then they will proceed for peer review. Acceptance rate at this stage can vary a lot between different subject and disciplines. If it's a very top tier journal and it's a very journal intensive kind of discipline itself, then definitely the acceptance rate will be quite low, okay, because there's a lot of people submitting. Okay, but they only have a limited number of quota of accepting the journal articles every year. So the duration of review for this stage is usually around 1 to 7 days. Okay, it depends on the journal and also how active is the editor-in-chief. Then for external peer review, definitely there will be a need for at least two, typically it's at least 2 external experts, okay, to comment on the paper, the manuscript itself. This will take about 3 to 10 weeks. Each journal will have different deadlines, okay, and also within the disciplines, there can also be quite a big variation too. So the editor-in-chief will make a decision just based on the reports of both referees. So this is how it looks from workflow, the chart itself. You can have a look later on. And in terms of the outcomes, it's usually the case that revisions are required. Okay, it is very rare for first round of review to have no changes at all required. Okay, so basically, you will get a revise and resubmit. It's only a matter of whether it's a minor revision or a major revision. So if you do receive a revise and resubmit, don't treat it as a rejection. Treat it as a good news. Okay, because the bad news is when you get rejected after the peer review. So in terms of minor revisions, it can mean a lot of things, but usually it's about the language. Okay, the language need a little bit more editing. Okay, more polishing up. There also request to add some new citations, newly published papers, or the reviewers wanted additional topics. Okay, and they may also ask for additional smaller experiments, okay, to complement the main body, or they want you to look at the interpretation again. Yeah, these are the possible reasons. Major revisions typically are on structural issues. Okay, they might say that, oh, you didn't really do a proper structure. The structure doesn't feel right. Okay, so they're asking you to do a restructure of the whole paper again, or they ask for more major experiments to be done. Okay, they don't think the current experiments provide enough support for the argument that you have made. Okay, or they say the argument needs to take into account a whole new topic. That means you need to do a lot more thinking, analysis, and writing. Or they may even say that, oh, existing analysis of the data is flawed. Okay, they are suggesting they use another method to analyze it. So of course, when you receive a revise and resubmit, after you're done with it, you need to respond. Okay, you need to provide a response letter when you resubmit the revised manuscript. So how do you go about doing it? Definitely, you have to be respectful and acknowledge, okay, the time and care the referees have taken, okay, in your response, okay, because most of the time the referees, the reviewers are not paid, okay, for this voluntary work. Engage them positively, constructively. Okay. Some of the criticisms might be a bit tough, and some might even be a bit more personal than usual. I understand that, but do not be defensive or aggressive. Okay, that will not reflect very well on you. Then, in terms of how to respond to the issues that reviewers have brought up, you can either respond to common themes in the reports, in both reports, or if there are not really any common themes, then you can address the issues in reader or referee A first, and after you're done with that, you can move on to referee B. Okay, so both ways will work. It's important to let the editor-in-chief and the reviewers know what you agree with, what you disagree with, and also what the changes you will make. Okay, it's not necessarily the case that you always have to agree to all the suggestions, okay, of the referee. Okay, if you disagree with them, just provide support or evidence to let the editor-in-chief know why you don't agree with the changes asked for. Lastly, try to write up a detailed list of changes that you have made. Okay, you can provide them in a bulleted on a numbered format. Okay, so this is important because during the process of revision, it can take a few months. Okay, for you to go back to the reviewers. So they might have forgotten what were they asking for in their original reports. Okay, they can go back and check. But if you provide this detailed list of changes, and if they are pressed for time, that means they will only look at what you have changed and what you did not change. Okay, so this will give you make it easier for you, okay, to get the paper accepted as it is, okay, as what you have done. Otherwise, they might read through the paper, the revised paper again, and then come out with new issues for you to address. Okay, so that might not be so good. That means that you might need to go for another round of review, get another round of revision. Okay, so that might delay the publication of your paper. So this is the tip that I can offer you. You can give it a go and try, see if it works for you. Lastly, rejection. This is the saddest part. Okay, rejection. Okay, in any case, in any situation. Okay, so take it as an opportunity, okay, just to improve the paper, whether it was rejected at the desk review stage or after the peer review. Okay, read through the referee's report carefully, and also what the editor-in-chief says, okay, and try to figure it out, what happened, why was it rejected. Okay, is it because the journal scope, or is it because of writing they are not comfortable with how you presented all the results and analysis? Or are there other fundamental issues that they mentioned, okay, that you need to address it, you need to solve it, okay, before you revise it and submit it to another journal? All right, as much as possible, you should always try to improve on it before you submit to another journal, because there is always a possibility that the reviewers from that journal could be the same reviewers. Okay, if they see that, oh, you didn't even try to improve the paper based on what I've suggested, then the outcome would probably be the same. So they will still reject it. Okay, so do keep that in mind. Now we come to open access. Okay, open access. So what is open access? Some of you might have some idea of it, but over here I provide a definition of it. This is adapted from the Budapest Open Access Initiative. So that was put forth quite many years ago. Basically, it means that the open access research, or in this case, journal articles, they are freely available, okay? Freely available on the internet. Any users can read, download, copy. They just, if you want to distribute, print, or even search, they can do it. It allows the spiders, the software, to crawl through the articles to index it, okay? And of course, pass them on as data to the other softwares, okay? Without for any lawful purposes, okay, as long as lawful purposes, it's fine there's no reason for you not to be able to reuse them, and there won't be any financial, legal, or technical barriers lah. So in this case, it means there's no paywall. You don't need to subscribe to the journal to access it. You don't need to sign an agreement to use it, or no, you don't need to download a special software to even download it. So what are the benefits of open access? For personally, as a researcher, it means that increased visibility. For sure, it will be increased visibility. So in this age of the internet, once you make something free, more people will come, okay, and try to read it. And when more people read it, that will mean there could be higher citations and also downloads, okay, as compared to an article that is put behind a paywall of those subscription model journals. In a way, it's also a greater control over the integrity and reuse of your work. Okay, you can let people know how you want to let your work be reused, okay, based on the Creative Commons license. And in a way, it's also the faster research dissemination. Okay, once the article is published online as Go Open Access, is most immediate. Okay, so there's no waiting time, there's no embargo. Okay, and of course, the profile for you as an author, for the funder and the university will be raised, especially if it's reporters or doctors or other professionals starts citing you as an expert. Okay, they start interviewing you. Okay, to help in their own work. Okay, that will increase your profile. Definitely the benefits for society as large and the global research community will be also good, because it means that access is all for common good, it's not for commercial reasons. In terms of this research, you open up the research, reduces research duplication, in the sense that sometimes it could mean that two different groups of authors are actually working on the same topic, but because they do not have access to each other's paper, so they are doing the work at the same time, and sometimes they want to compete against each other, so they will just publish in different journals, but actually the results are quite similar. So there's a duplication of research. But if you publish open access, whoever is faster, in that sense, the competition is about speed now. If whoever can publish faster and online as a Go Open Access article, then possibly the other group of authors will need to modify their paper to avoid duplication. So this is good for in terms of making the resources being used more efficiently. Lastly, of course, we accelerate research and innovation. So within Cambridge, we are embracing open access in a big way. So far, we signed over 100 transformative agreements with 1,000 institutions, okay, in 30 countries. So that covers more than 50% of journal research authors. In all the subject areas, we publish 450 journals, and we have 68, okay, fully Go Open Access journals. So these fully Go Open Access, Go OA journals, they are free for anyone to access. That means you don't need to be, have a transformative agreement with the library. As long as you're individual researcher, you can access them, you can read them. But if you do want to publish in those journals, then probably you will need funding for the APC, unless you are already included in a transformative agreement with Cambridge. So today we also publish a lot of books, okay, as Go Open Access, but books are considered as a different product within the press itself, so they are not included in the transformative agreement. We are also publishing, okay, new open access journal concepts, okay, call them prisms, flow, experimental results, research directions. They're all pretty new and innovative. So if you have the time, you can just click on the link later, okay, and have a look. We do aim, okay, that's our big aim, is to convert all our journals that we publish to open access, fully open access by end of 2025. That means about 2 years later, okay, almost 1.5 years later. So in this year, we have flipped 7 journals to Go Open Access. Okay, these are the journals that are now fully Go Open Access. We also have a lot of resources for open access, okay, so that you can find out more, some videos. So in terms of Cambridge, the transformative agreements, which are the journals? Are you eligible? Okay, so I'm just going to talk about Thailand only. There are two institutions, Mahidol University and Prince of Songkhla University. Okay, so for Mahidol University, we have signed the transformative agreement with them, and that also includes the 2 hospitals, the 2 affiliated hospitals. For 2023, all right? So if you're a current faculty of Mahidol University, including hospitals, you can actually publish, okay, at no cost, okay? That means you yourself, you don't have to pay, because it's included in the agreement with the university and the library, in all our Go and hybrid journals. Okay, so what are the journals you can publish in? You will see on the slide that I have provided a link. So there are around 389 journals. So if you click on them, they will show you, okay, which are the journals you can publish. Okay. Unfortunately, the new open access concept journals are now excluded. Okay, for now they're still excluded, but perhaps maybe from 2025 onwards they might be included. So just take note of that. And of course, definitely you have all the access, okay, free access, or not really free, but you have access to all our journals content. Similarly, okay, for Prince of Songkhla University, okay, all the faculty, they can also do the same, okay, you can publish in the journals. Actually, the journals are the same. Access is also the same, okay. So eligibility, okay, there's also eligibility. How do you know you're eligible, okay? You need to be the corresponding author, okay? That's how we determine, okay? So it means you have to be a corresponding author in the paper itself, okay? If you're the corresponding author of either Mahidol University or the Prince of Songkhla University, then okay, you're eligible. Secondly, look, is the article and original research, such as research articles, rapid comms, review, brief reports, case reports. So if it falls within any of those, then it is eligible. You fulfill the second part of the requirement, okay? The third part is you have to be accepted for publication in the journal that is covered by the agreement from 1st January 2023. All right. So you now is already 8th of March. You still have a 6 months, about 6 months left. Okay. To try to get it in. Okay, 6 to 9 months. So don't wait too long. Okay. You already have the paper ready. You can submit. Okay. To any of the journals that is covered by the agreement. Okay, okay, Do be aware, of course, as I mentioned earlier, the books are not included. Okay, so if you wish to publish a book as Go Open Access, you will need to contact the books commissioning editor directly. So if you have any other further queries, you can of course contact your librarian directly. Or we also have a procedure, okay, how you go about publishing it. Okay, so this will only happen after you are so-called accepted by the journal, okay, for publication. Okay, the journal editor actually says, okay, I accept your article for publication. So this is the the important steps. Ideally, we need you to provide the ORCID. Okay, so registration for the ORCID is free. You can just go to the ORCID website and register your own ORCID ID. And then you just see if you have any funder or institutional mandates, okay? But if not, then it's quite easy. You just choose the CC-BY license. So this is the most liberal license. What it means is that anybody can access the license they can access the paper as long as they cite your research. They can use it for any reason, for even commercial, like they publish it in a book is also fine. Okay, so this is the CC-BY license. So upon acceptance, then definitely just choose the Go Open Access option in your auto publishing agreement and select the license. So I've provided here the step-by-step guide. You can just click on it if you need to learn more about this. So for Mahidol University, I'm glad to see that some of you, some of the researchers or faculty members have published in these journals itself. Journal of Laryngology and Otology, Public Health Nutrition, Epidemiology and Infection, Primary Healthcare Research and Development. All right, so do keep them coming. Okay, try your best. And of course, I'll just flip through a few slides to show you some of the journals. Okay, we do have journals in medicine, quite a big number. Okay, first page, second page. Engineering, not so much, unfortunately, but engineering, they don't really publish, the key focus is not on journals. Okay, it's more conference proceedings. Computer science, yes, we do have computer science journals. If you're from that faculty, do take a look. Physics, astronomy, environmental sciences, and of course, maths is very big. And of course, social sciences, humanities, we definitely have a lot of them too. So now I actually come to the end of the webinar. I hope it wasn't too fast. I would like to thank all of you, okay, for the opportunity to present our journals, and I hope you find it useful. So now here's the last slide, is just the feedback slide. You can actually click on the link, or if you have a phone, you can also scan the QR code to provide your feedback. Okay, so now I will move on to the Q&A. Let me have a look. If you have any questions, please do just enter them into the Q&A. Okay. So let me scroll from the top of the chat too. Okay. So we have someone from Timor-Leste. Very good. Philippines, Indonesia, Nepal. All right. Okay. In terms of the slides, the materials, don't worry. We will share them with you a few days later after the webinar. And also the video, if I'm not wrong. Okay. Let me see what is the time now. Okay, good. It's now 3:57, so 15 minutes. Feel free to put in your questions. Any questions are okay. Yeah. Don't have to worry. I will try my best to provide answers. All right, for those that are not from Thailand, I will also provide a separate set of slides. Okay, I think some of you might be, especially if you do not have a transformative agreement with Cambridge, some of you might be able to also publish your research in our journals if your country falls under the Research for Life initiative under the United Nations. Okay, so just watch out for the slides, the separate set of slides. You may find them useful too. Okay. Oh, okay. First question. Author who has never published. What's the very first thing he or she can do to get into this field? Wow. Okay, that's a very good question. Okay, so if you have never published and this is the very first time you're even coming into so-called this publishing world, in the sense, the first thing is just to read more. Okay, read more. Okay, for example, if you're in a subject discipline of maybe life sciences, trying to find out more by shortlisting, okay, certain journals that you know are quite famous or top tier, okay. If you can, if your library has access to those life sciences journals, then try to read up a bit about the life science articles that we published there, and then get a feel, okay. Do you think your paper can meet that the kind of the quality or the kind of impact that they are looking for? Okay, so basically the first step is to actually select the journal. Okay, the first step is to select the journal, and if possible, also try to present your paper at some maybe regional, national, or even international conferences. By doing so, you will get a lot of useful feedback. Okay, useful feedback about your paper itself. Okay, and they might be able to tell you, oh, you maybe you got to do this, you got to do that. Okay, then that will really help. And also at some of these conferences or workshops, you might meet journal editors too. Okay, so it's a good way, okay, to for introducing yourself to them, and they also know you. And if they think your paper is interesting, they might even ask you to submit it. So that is a tip I have for you. Okay. I know some of you may not have the funding, to go for conferences, but this is I mean, this in the past, this was one of the ways. The other ways is just to, you could also try to get in touch with the editorial board members. Okay, these editorial board members are usually authors who have already published in the journal before. They are already quite established in that sense. They might also be able to offer you tips, especially if you know they are researching in or writing in the same area as you. Okay, so you can go through the editorial board members. You email them and just respectfully, okay, ask for advice. Is it good to submit my paper in this journal itself? Right, there's another question. What about the book publication? Okay, can we submit to other publications for book manuscript? Some say the rule for book is different from journal. So is it okay to submit to more than one publisher? Thank you very much. Rune Gravi. Okay, so I would say that yes, it is quite different. Books and journals are quite different in the sense they serve a slightly different purpose, because books are long format, whereas journals are short format. Books take a much longer time to publish, and the process is slightly a bit more rigorous here at Cambridge. Not saying that the commercial publish, they don't do a rigorous job, but we are even more rigorous than them. So basically, yes, you can submit the proposal or the manuscript to more than one publisher at a time. Okay, so there's no reason not to. The only time they may ask you to, withdraw your proposal or manuscript is when they decide, one of the publishers decide to, peer review the manuscript. So typically when a publisher says they want to peer review the manuscript, means they are quite keen to publish it, but they still need to get some feedback from the reviewers and referees. Basically, that is how it works, or rather how it's a little bit different. As far as possible, for books, you just need to go directly. Okay, just email the book commissioning editor directly to find out more about whether the manuscript or the book proposal you have in mind are within the scope or within something that the book editor, the commissioning editor is interested in. So this is a little bit different. Okay, so you have to build up a personal relationship with the commissioning editor first before they need to know you a bit more about your research, okay, your background. So it's a little bit different, okay. But I must say that books are a bit more difficult to publish as compared to journal articles too. Yeah, especially if you have not published any journal articles before, it will be quite tough in that sense. Okay, the next question. With regards to publishing a research paper, you mentioned affiliation with two universities. Does that mean individual authors not affiliated to those universities will not be able to submit their papers? Okay, so I want to clarify here. So what I mentioned was the transformative agreement. Okay, previously we call it the read and publish agreement. Basically, this is agreement that a publisher will sign with a university library that allows the university's faculty, whether it be graduate students or lecturers or professors, to access the journals. Okay, so-called they get to access the journals, but they also get to publish in those journals. Okay, because the open access the fees itself, the APCs are actually sort of incorporated into the transformative agreement. Okay, so if you are not a faculty of the TAs, the transformative agreements, you can still submit the paper. Okay, you can still submit the paper, but you need to have your own funding. Okay, you need to find your own funding. If it is a fully go open access journal, okay, you're going to find your own funding to pay for it. Whereas if you are a faculty in a TA signed with Cambridge, you would not need to find your own funding. It's sort of included. The university library has sort of already paid for it. Okay, Hector Pradhan has asked, I'm from Prince of Songkla University. Do I have to go through the university library to submit my manuscript or direct submission? What is the procedure? All right, okay, so that's very straightforward. You just submit directly, okay? Just submit directly to the journal itself. Once, for example, you go through the whole peer review process, everything is smooth, you get accepted in the journal itself, then they will know you are from Prince of Songkla University. Your university has a transformative agreement with Cambridge, and they will probably ask whether you want to publish go open access. Of course, you would lah. Then at that point, when you are asked to sign the publishing agreement, okay, once the journals have accepted the publishing agreement, you just need to indicate you will want to publish go open access. So they will match up your OCUT or your affiliation with our records, and then we will let you know that you can go ahead. That means you don't need to pay for the APC because your university is included in the transformative agreement that was signed with Cambridge. Okay, so this is more or less the same for any other publishers. It's not just for Cambridge. So it's probably the same procedure. You always submit directly to the journal first. So the paperwork, so-called the paperwork to publish open access will only happen after the journal has agreed to publish. Yeah. Okay. Okay, now I'm looking at the Q&A from Lazana from Nepal. What are some common mistakes to avoid when publishing a research paper with Cambridge Press itself? Common mistakes, there are a lot of common mistakes, but most of the time is if you are very new, you may submit to the wrong journal. Okay, it's out of scope, or you miss out on certain parts of your paper that needs to be included. Okay, so that leads to sort of a immediate rejection, but actually more or less it's more or less that you need to resubmit the paper again. It's not really a rejection in that case. Okay, and of course a language issue, which is also very common for non-native English speakers. Sometimes they are very particular. Some of the journals are more particular, especially in the social sciences and humanities. They are more particular about the language. So I guess, yeah, these are about the three main common so-called mistakes first-time authors may make. Yeah. Okay, so okay. Yeah, as open source, open access, open research is becoming more important and common across the domains. What issues should the new authors practice as the topmost priority so that they don't relate from plagiarism as well as can progress and do well in career as an author? Okay, plagiarism. Wow, that's a very difficult question to answer. So as far as possible, cite all the sources. Okay, if you are gonna use or copy or reproduce any text or any figures, anything at all, okay, that has been already published before, just cite the sources. Okay, put it in quote marks and let others know that you're not claiming that text as yours. Okay, that should work most of the time. And of course, there people might say, how about is there copyright in ideas, concepts? I would say, unfortunately, no. So it is possible, okay, for people to have the same concept, but they produce two different research papers. Okay, so this is something you should be aware of. So that is not really what we would call plagiarism. Plagiarism is something that's very clear, okay, in the sense that you are copying something, but you do not state upright that this is someone else work. It's not your own work. It's not your own writing. Okay, so as long as you do that, it should be fine. Can you prevent other people from plagiarizing your work? Unfortunately, no. Okay, so copyright is piracy is always an issue. So if you do spot people copying your work without citing your work, citing you as the original author, definitely you can go back to that journal and lodge a complaint, or even just email the author directly. So that is how it works. I think the more important issue nowadays is for open access is you have to be more careful about predatory journals. Okay, so I don't have the time to cover that in this webinar. Maybe the next webinar we can talk a bit more about predatory journals, but that one will be a bit more tricky to explain, but also quite important, especially for early career researchers who are new to it. Okay. Let me go to the Q&A. I have to switch to, okay. Is CUP a journal suggester like app like Springer to search a suitable journal based on the article's abstract? Amma, I'm sorry, but we don't have that. Okay, we are not as well-resourced as Springer Nature. They are really, really big company with a lot of resources. They have a lot of big team, technology team working on all these improvements for their journals. We are considered lagging in that sense behind them, but definitely this is something on our to-do list, okay, in terms of the suitable journals. But the good thing about our portfolio is that we do not have as big collection of journals as compared to Springer Nature or maybe the other journals, commercial publishers. So it shouldn't take up too much of time to go through some of the journals to see if they meet your journal's scope. Is it the same? The aims and scope, is it within scope? So that is the other advantage of a smaller collection of journals. Okay. Oh, okay. Judith has asked, what is the requirement to become a member of the TA? Is it only for government aided university or even private university? This is something that only my sales manager can answer, but basically it is available to any institution at all who is interested, okay, in signing such an agreement with Cambridge. If you are interested, you can always, I'm not sure where are you based at, because if you're based in Thailand, you can of course get in contact with our sales manager to ask your university librarian to get in touch with our sales manager to find out more how you can be part of the transformative agreement with Cambridge. Yeah, it's not just restricted to government aided university or private university. It's open to all. So as long as you are agreeable to the terms, okay, so you can sign the agreement. Okay, one more question. What is the average time frame from the day we submit to the journal and the day of publication? Some journals publish online first and on paper later to help speed up the publication process. Do you have that system? Yes, definitely we have that. So most of the journals, especially the sciences, they do have online publication first. Okay, so what happens is once editor-in-chief agrees or accepts your paper for publication in the journal itself, what happens is you will go through the whole production process. I guess it may take 4 to 8 weeks, okay, depending on how long and how complex the article is. So once that happens, it will be published online first. Okay, they will indicate the online publication date. However, the actual publication in issue will take a longer time. that will depend on the backlog. Okay, we call it the backlog of the journal articles a journal have. Okay, if it has a huge backlog, so it might take a longer time, maybe more than a year. Okay, if it doesn't have a lot of articles backlog to make up an issue, then probably maybe within a year or maybe 6 months later, you'll be included in the issue and so be officially so-called published. Yeah, so the duration from online publication to an actual so-called final publication in an issue can vary a lot. So it depends on how well managed the journal is by the editor-in-chief. Yeah. And also because certain journals, they have a lot of issues, but they publish a lot of issues every year, but they have a bigger backlog. So it's not an issue. It's not a problem for them. But some journals, they are only allowed to publish maybe 3 or 4 issues a year, but they accepted too many online article, too many articles. So that might cause a bit of delay in that sense. So one way is you can email, okay, after the article is published online, you can email the editor-in-chief to find out how long do you think it will take for my article to be assigned to an issue and be considered published. Yeah. Okay. All right. Let me have a look at the time. Oh, it's now 4:15. Do you have any more last questions? Okay, I saw there's one last question. If we talk about Cambridge University Press publishing, does it take those authors less seriously if they have published, if they're earlier published in less famous journals? Okay, famous journals is a loaded term. How will we consider a journal as famous? Okay, maybe more reputable, you mean? Okay, so like Nature or these journals. Okay, so those are reputable journals. So any other journals are not reputable? I wouldn't say so, but rather I would say if you have published in a low quality journal, okay, then you may not be taken as seriously as by our journal editors. What is a low quality journal? Okay, one subset of a low quality journal is a predatory journal. Okay, predatory journals do not do much improvement in your article. They are only interested in earning your article processing fees. Okay, so they will take your money and then they'll just do nothing to the paper and they'll just publish it. All right. So those we will consider them as low quality journals. Low quality journals also means perhaps that like it's not as well known in the sense that very few scholars are aware of that journal. It's not widely disseminated. Perhaps it's only known in a single country, and that might influence the decision of the journal editor-in-chief, right? Especially if they have not heard of it. So it all depends by how you determine a low quality journal. It doesn't matter if you start out with a low quality journal. For example, if you were only able to publish your very first paper in a not pretty low ranking journal in a sense, as long as you are willing, okay, to try to keep climbing up, as in try to aim higher and higher with next paper that you write, then I think it's just a matter of time before you can so-called publish in a reputable journal. Okay, so do keep in mind that there are a lot of new open access journals are being started for the past 3 years. So which ones are the good quality, which are low quality, we are not sure yet because it takes time to find out. So my main at least for my perspective, from my perspective is as long as the journal carries out a good peer review process, they carry out formal review on the paper itself, then you get to receive good feedback to improve the journal article, then it is considered as a good enough journal. Okay, but if there's not much no expectations from you in terms of the journal article that and it's too easy to publish, then I would say that is not a very good quality journal. Yeah. Okay. All right. There's a bit more questions. What's more preferable, publish individually or by groups? 3 to 4 members. Okay, there's no preference. Okay, it all depends. You know, in the medical and sciences, it's always a group effort. Okay, in the research, so it can't be helped that there's more than one person. Maybe in the humanities, the journals, and certain social sciences, it's best to be published by one person. But more often than not, it's nowadays at least it's at least two. So it's at least two. Okay, so at least you can split up the work. Because if you are only publishing on your own, then you know it's a bit tougher sometimes. Sorry, I am not a lecturer. I am acquisitions editor from Cambridge University Press. Thank you. Any reliable ranking of quality of journals recognized across the globe? No, there's no such ranking at all. No. If you want to refer to the Web of Science, it's fine. They have an impact factor, but do remember they are a commercial company. So they do have different aims in coming up with the rankings or the impact factors. Yes, we will make the recording of this session available to those who have signed up for it. All right, one last Q&A. Does Cambridge has a journal dedicated to last mile logistics? Oh, logistic journals. Sorry, we do not. We do not have such a journal. I'm sorry. Yeah, we do not have much of a presence in the operations research, unfortunately. So I guess you may have to look at other publishers who have signed an agreement, a transformative agreement with Prince of Songkla. They might have a journal that fits your research. All right, I think I better end this now so that I don't take up too much of your time. And as usual, I thank all of you, okay, for continue to support Cambridge. And of course, I wish you all the best in your career of publishing. Maybe one day you'll also be able to publish in Cambridge and all the good publishers. I will be signing off now. And as I mentioned, please do help to complete the online survey, and the slides and the video, link to the video recording will be made available to the registered participants maybe in a few days' time. Okay, thank you, everybody. Thank you.